What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mark Show. We're back here for another discussion after The Last Dance, where we discuss the Chicago Bulls documentary, Michael Jordan. So I have my boys back, all of us this time. And for this episode, Jason Verpool, Chris Sale, Anthony Aristis. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with Anthony. Describe this episode in one word.
Toughest.
Okay.
And then I say that because you look at it between the backstory of Steve Kerr with going through everything with his dad and the relation with Jordan. And then to me, one of probably the toughest series the Bulls had to go through during their whole run with the Pacers was that Eastern Conference Finals against the Pacers with Reggie Miller and going to Game 7 and everything that went on with that.
Nice. What about you, Chris? What you got?
Frustration. That's what I got. A lot of frustration. Reggie Miller couldn't get the job done. Boy had his chance. And then, the Jazz choking away in this series. Although, as a Rockets fan, I'm actually happy that the Bulls beat them 2 times in a row because I hate the Jazz, but still frustrating.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. I was pissed when they showed the clip of Game 6, Rockets versus Jazz, where you see Karl Malone holding a Rockets player. You literally see it holding. I was pissed when they showed that. I was like, really? We're gonna go back there now? Like, whatever.
Hey, I'm glad we made it in the series finally.
Right. Where you at, Jason? What you got?
I'm gonna go with legacy. Legacy only because it seems as though towards the end of the Last Dance and let's say the last 2 years of the run is that they have to keep on going back down to the well and try to reach deep inside themselves because at that particular time they were a little bit more of an older team, one of the oldest teams in the league, and to have a team that was treated like rock stars wherever they went, having the media all over them whenever they did something and whatnot. It's hard to kind of keep that concentration, that focus. And a lot of times they ran into a lot of roadblocks and they found different ways to win. And a lot of times that just comes from being a champion in the past and just being able to reach down and get something else when you need it the most.
Yeah. I'm going with grit, this episode because with them facing the Pacers, that Pacers team was bad. That Pacers team was sick. Them boys was cold. And everyone knew it.
Dude,
Oh, you go ahead.
They had a squad.
Yes. That team was cold.
They had a squad. They were coming up. They had a nice little run. But, I mean, they actually made it to the finals. They played the Lakers a couple years later.
Yeah. The same team.
They were much older by that time. Reggie was much older. He wasn't the same guy anymore.
Right. No, I understand that. They had a nice little run, and they were tough. You see what I'm saying? But, the Eastern Conference was tough at that time. That was the premier conference. If you ask me, for a long time. For pretty much most of all of the 90s, the Eastern Conference was stronger as a whole, which made the playoff series tough. They just caught the Bulls at the right time, and they fought them. But, to be honest with you, I never thought that, even though that went to a 7-game, I never felt like we were going to lose at any point in time. But I'm not going to lie. I was kind of nervous in the first, 15 minutes of that game because we fell behind early. And it was a slugfest. So they didn't they showed – go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say they showed a little bit of the game and whatnot, but they should have showed how grueling it was. Meaning I don't think that game – I can't remember the final score, but I don't think that game got into the 90s. Meaning in terms of the score. There was tough defense. It was a gruel out. It was rebounding. It was defense. It was predicated off of that.
That was a recurring theme in all the games. The score is how low they were.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to what we see today, I was seeing a lot of low 80s, mid 80s scores, barely in over 90 and winning the game. So, yeah, the defense was definitely more ferocious back then. So,
well, and that's the thing. The Pacers had the Davis boys They had Hornacek. They had Chris Mullen. I had forgot that they had Mullen at that point. Reggie Miller, Mark Jackson. Like they had a lot of talented players.
Mm-hmm.
To me, if I'm asking the question to y'all right now is who was the toughest series the Bulls ever faced in the playoffs?
I mean, during the second three-peat run, or we're just
across the board through their 6 championships? Who do you think the toughest series was?
To be honest with you, I would say the New York Knicks.
Yeah, I would agree.
In my opinion.
Knicks.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't all around. See, the only difference between you might be able to make the difference between the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks is that Indiana Pacers, they were smart. You had to beat them. The Knicks, we just knew somewhere along the way they was going to, screw up themselves. The Knicks were notorious, and they did it against the Rockets, too, when they played them in the finals. They'd find some way to throw the ball away in the last 2 minutes of the game, create a dumb foul or a dumb offensive foul off a screen. They would always do something to collapse. So they were always viewed as a tough team, but not necessarily tough-minded. The Knicks, where that Pacers team was really smart. They moved the ball. They ran their offense. And to be honest with you, I think they just caught us at the right time. It was just more of this was the last leg, and we're limping to a championship.
See, that's right there why I think the Pacers were the toughest test during the whole Bulls legacy.
Okay.
Because every time I watched the Bulls-Knicks, I knew it was going to be a tough game. I knew it was going to be one of those games that was going to be a grueling, hard-fought, tough, rough, everything like that. But I never thought the Bulls were going to lose. That Game 7 game with the Pacers, I thought, man, they might lose.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those just creeped in my mind. The Knicks had their time where Starks did the dunk and they had that momentum. But at the end of the day, you knew they're not going to go to 7. They're not going to lose this series. There's no way Jordan will lose this. For some reason with the Pacers, I thought, man, they might lose this. And to me, that was the toughest series they had between any of them other than the Pistons before they made it to a championship. The only other series I would think is the very first year they won the championship when they beat the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To me, those 2 series are the ones that were the toughest for the Bulls in their whole
I'm not going to take anything away from the Indiana
Pacers.
They deserve all the credit they're getting. I'm just saying when we were down 0-2, I'm sorry, I keep saying we, but because I grew up in it. But the Bulls in '93, when we go down 0-2 to the Knicks, man, that was really?
See,
because we lost the first game. And the thing, and you have to understand that the Bulls, the way they did is some years they were number 1 in the conference. Some years they weren't. They were number 2 or number 3. And that's why you keep getting these weird series where, let's say they open up in '98 when they play the Utah Jazz, they're on the road because Utah had a better record. Okay. Same thing with the Knicks that year in '93. We're trying to finish the first three-peat. We go down 0-2. And that was the Starks dunk that you were talking about at the end of game 2. We came home limping. But then Mike sat there and not talked to the media for 4 straight days. He was getting fined every single day that he would talk to the media. He said, I'm not talking to them until we even up the series or thing. Because he ended up not talking, I think, the rest of the series when they won 4 straight.
But that's the thing is and again, I get the 0-2.
Okay.
It's just, I knew there wasn't a shadow of doubt that they weren't going to win.
Okay.
Like you said, the Knicks always fumbled it. The Knicks always did just something that tripped over their own shoelaces or something like that. They could never close the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I love the highlight on that episode where it said, who was the all-star that Jordan beat the most in playoff series? And it was Patrick Ewing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because, dude, Patrick Ewing, between college and pro, that dude had a curse against Jordan.
Yeah.
There's no way that he could beat him.
Yeah.
And going back to the Pacers situation, and like Reggie said, once that tip ball went to Pippen and Pippen threw it to Steve Kerr, he knew, this may be a wrap. And the ball went in. He knew that was a shift, right? That's all he needed. That was it. And so from that point on, it was, and you could see it when they showed replays of them playing that game. The crowd was electric. Like that crowd was hyped up. Everyone was like, was just, there was no way they was going to lose this game after that. There was just no way.
I love on the documentary how they talked about Reggie Miller saying, you know, I think it was his rookie year, maybe second year, one of those where
it was rookie year.
Yeah, when he was guarding Jordan and you know, preseason game where Jordan was just kind of going through the motion, and then he's talking crap to him, and Jordan comes back and just schools him. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's when he wasn't Michael Jordan anymore. That's Black Jesus." And that was. I've heard that interview like 3 or 4 times, and each time it's funnier.
Reggie got goaded into that. He said his coach would goad him into.
No, it was one of the players. I want to say it was Chuck Person. Yeah, it was like, yeah, go at him, man. Show him who you are. And he bit that shit.
But I'll give Reggie is an assassin in his own right.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so for the most part, it's kind of like this. In regards to the episodes, and if we want to just talk about the whole documentary in its whole, and just for a second, I thought that they did a really good job in the very beginning talking about individual members of the Bulls and their backstory and kind of tying them into where they were in '98, right? What I did not necessarily enjoy about this series is that they didn't necessarily go into any in-depth about their opponents. You see what I'm saying? I thought that they went over the Sonics way too fast. Utah, they kind of gave some love to because it was a 2-year thing. Chuck and the Suns and so forth. So it's more of like, I would have liked to get a little bit more of a, give me a feel for the league then. Give me a feel for their opponents. Give me a feel for, damn, Sean Kemp was just this crazy athlete before he ate too many Twinkies.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think they tried to do that a little bit because they tried to do it with Gary Payton, where like every time they did something with the player, like Payton was the one saying that he could guard him. And I like how they showed Jordan the video, and then Jordan's laughing, and like that's a new meme now, is him laughing at that. Charles Barkley winning the MVP, then Karl Malone winning the MVP, and he's like, "Oh, that's all the fuel I need." And then like different athletes, like what was it, LeBradford Smith, that they did that too. But to your point, I wish they would have went into the series more and like built it up as far as like how dominant Seattle was at that time.
Right.
Yeah,
Seattle had like a 4 or 5 year reign where they were, they were one of the best teams, and they finally broke through that particular time, because remember they were the team that lost to the Nuggets a couple years before in '94, 2 years before, where they clearly had the best record, and they lost to Dikembe and the Nuggets. And then I don't know how they fell apart in '95, but '96 they make it. So a little bit of the backstory of their opponents too, because to give the proper context of triumph, you have to tell the story of what you might call the evil character, whether it's Thanos or Darth Vader or Stone Cold Steve Austin. You got to give the back character a little bit. You know what I mean? It's time.
Yeah.
Like the reason why Detroit works so well is because Detroit beat Chicago, and then how they left the court in terms of the apex of the transition of power when the Bulls take over. You can appreciate the Bulls overcoming that. The rest of them, sometimes it just made, to me, it made the
blip.
Utah Jazz
just a blip.
Yeah.
Well, even to start, like, dude, the Lakers were so dominant for so many years. It was the '80s was all about the Lakers, Celtics, and then at the end was Pistons. And they did their part on the Pistons, but they didn't really show like how the Lakers were dominant and like build that one up, because I remember that series and it was like, oh crap, the Lakers. But then when they swept them, or beat them in 5 games, I think. Yeah, it's just like, oh dude, like Jordan's for real. I remember that series going, okay, like he got his first championship, dude. He's for real. He's gonna win. He's gonna win more now.
Yeah, that series was one of the quickest. I thought they really would have delved into that one just because of Magic Johnson. Because Johnson had a great season that year to lead the Lakers to that finals. And then they just like, yeah, well, Jordan came, dominated, and 1-5. It was over for a championship. Like,
yeah, they focus more on the Pistons that season, I guess, than the Lakers, which they could have done a whole new episode just on the whole Lakers series.
Right. But that's the one thing that I wish it would have been a little bit more in terms of from a creativity aspect of when you're trying to put a documentary together and whatnot, or when you're trying to put a source of entertainment in front of them, you have to have adversaries.
Well, and if you're looking at who's the biggest adversary in this whole documentary,
Jerry Krause.
Dude, they nailed that.
Yeah.
But that poor guy, like, I got to say, like, Jerry Krause, he ended it, but he also built it. Like, he made some awesome trades. The fact that he traded Oakley and made some of those trades to get Pippen and Grant and all them, you got to give him his credit. And the fact that he was a baseball scout. How the hell Reinsdorf picked him to be a general manager for basketball when he was a baseball scout?
Jerry Krause. All right, so first and foremost, right? All right, I'm gonna tell you this. Like, Jerry Krause deserves some respect, but come on, man. Let's put the thing on his. Let's put some respect on his name. The dude, okay, he drafted Horace, he drafted Scotty. All right. And then you had a bunch of role players in regards to thing. And he got Kukoc, true. Okay, give him credit for that. But for the most part, look at how the NBA is run today, where people change teams all the time. Now, I understand that there were some larger contracts and whatnot back then, meaning people would sign for 5 to 7 years, not 2 to 4 like now. But come on, man. I mean, really, we couldn't get anybody else. You know what I mean? We couldn't to keep this thing going.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. At the end of it, you're right. But you got to think about in the middle of it where he got Rodman to replace Horace Grant. He got Luke Longley to replace Cartwright. You know, like, and even you look at it, they had such a tough series with the Pistons, right? Mm-hmm. 2 of the Pistons were on their team. Rodman.
Yeah, Rodman.
James Edwards.
And John Sally was on
there. John Sally.
No.
You know, like in.
Okay, time out. Wait a minute. But what was John Sally and Buddha Edwards doing at that point? They were picking up towel.
Right, but so was Robert Parrish.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you talking about? I mean, how is that like a key pickup? Those dudes were at the end of their career just picking up and cashing out on a ring. I mean, shit, they got Jack Bailey too.
All they were doing was sitting there and coaching, and they kept the same players. The biggest move they did, which Pippen did to himself, was signing that 7-year, $19 million contract, because that gave them everything they needed. Because Pippen should have been paid way more than that.
True. But you understand. See, the thing is that it's a different era back then. You sign longer-term deals, which made sense because there was a bunch of guys. There's a list of guys who signed contracts, blew out their knee, and they never played again. You see what I'm saying? So he didn't want to be in a situation where he's in the league 2 years, he blows out his knee, he blows out his ankle or something like that, has a career-ending injury, because back then people weren't bouncing back from MCL, ACL like Adrian Peterson. Okay, if you had that injury, you're pretty much done. You know, there's so many careers that were ended off of that back then. So he come from a poor town. You know what I mean? He got to pay his family. But the only thing is that he shouldn't have been complaining about it, though.
Yes, in that part of it, his ego, 100%. But think about this: he picked up Ron Harper. And Ron Harper had that same knee injury you're talking about during that time. Dude, Ron Harper was the best defensive player on that Cavs team. And I like that they showed that early on in the documentary on how he should have been guarding Jordan versus Craig Elo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then now he's playing with them, and he's a pivotal part of that team on the second three-peat.
Yeah.
You know, but when you look at the first three-peat and the second three-peat, they did a great job of replacing players. Like Paxton was on the first one, and they get Kerr on the second one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, BJ was on the first one. They get Harper and Randy Brown and all them. You know, it's like that goes to the management, which you got to give Krause his credit. And I like the fact that at the end of the day, the two biggest compliments I heard that I did not think I would hear during the whole documentary was Jordan saying that Isaiah was the second best point guard ever, and Pippen saying Krause was the best GM ever.
Yeah.
Those two compliments, I was like, holy crap. I can't believe they actually said that on camera.
Yeah. I thought they were going to bury both of them, but gave him his respect.
They didn't give him Krause respect because he deceased and his family watching.
Pretty much.
Oh, for real, man. I'm conspiracy theorist. That's what I'm saying.
Like I said, you got to give Krause his credit.
I'm gonna try to tell you this. It's Phil Jackson.
Don't stop hating him.
Phil Jackson put that talent together, had that talent together, and kept it together, and had people playing at specific spots. Like if you notice on Phil Jackson's team, there's always some bum. Excuse me on my language. I mean they are NBA players, but there's always some bum at the end of the bench, and then next thing you know, he ain't done nothing all year, and he's put in the game at a key moment, and the dude does something to tilt the balance of the game. That's Phil Jackson.
No, hold on. Here's where I'll disagree with you. Because Phil coached that, but he couldn't put it as an executive. If he could have, the Knicks would have won a championship.
What you mean the Knicks would have won a championship?
When Phil was the executive, he would have put the right pieces in place. Like, Phil was a coach? Yes. As an executive, no.
That's not his fault. James Dolan was – come on, man. James Dolan was still paying off of contracts guys that weren't even playing there years later. They were still paying Allen Houston.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There was years after he was done playing. It's like Bobby Bonilla or Bonilla. No, seriously.
I look at Jackson just like I look at Jordan in the executive role. Like, I love Jordan to death. He's my greatest favorite player of all time, everything like that. But as an executive, he's been good.
Terrible decisions. It's just different, man. It's different.
That's what I'm saying. Jackson as a coach is the best.
Yeah. Well, Jordan as a player compared to him now as an executive is different because you can have more effect on the team and their performance because you're out there doing everything with them. But when you sit in the press box all the time, it ain't not much you can do. All you can do is just sign the check. You can get mad all you want to, but you just sign the check, bro.
And that's why when he was in Washington, he did what he did, but he said, screw this, I'm going to go join the team. Because that's the only way he knew how to lead it.
Yeah. It worked for
I'm just mad because I think in 97, we had a chance to sign Mario Ellie, and he wanted to play for the Bulls, and they decided not to do it. Mike wanted Mario. Phil wanted Mario. Scotty wanted Mario. Your boy Krause didn't because they didn't want to pay Mario.
Well, that's because he got 2 championships with Chris's Rockets.
Yeah, I know.
Right. Well, actually, yeah, I remember I think he did play with Mario in the 98-99 season, the shortened season. Because wasn't Mario Ellie still on the Rockets at the time?
I don't know if he was still on the team by then. Around that time. When we did the trade for Pippen, I don't think he was still on the team.
Oh, he was? Okay. I thought he probably was. So
we had a bunch of guys that on the team then. I mean, you had the pillars. You had Pippen, you had Olajuwon, you had Barkley, and I think we had Drexler still. But everyone else was a bunch of guys that were just no-name guys. We had to get rid of a lot of people just to do that trade for Pippen.
You got Matt Maloney.
Ugh.
Yay!
Jesus. Killing Cato.
You look at the 6 championships Jordan played against, how many of them won titles? Like, when you talk about, like, the superstars that he played against.
I mean, outside of Magic.
Peyton on the last legs with the Heat.
Drexel with the Rockets.
Drexel with the Rockets.
Drexler with the Rockets. Who else?
That's all I could think of. Because Karl Malone, he didn't win none.
Yeah, it didn't
Yeah,
happen.
because he got hurt that year.
Stockton Malone didn't win anything.
He
Well,
got hurt.
Sean Kemp didn't win anything.
and remember, Malone went to the Lakers. They got to the finals again and still got their ass whipped
Yes,
by
whooped
the Pistons.
Well, he should have been making passes at Kobe's wife, man. What the fuck's wrong with you, man? That's Mamba, son. Come on down here. Come on down here.
Hey, that's the mailman. He's trying to deliver.
I'm deliver on Sundays. Hey, you see that they didn't clown the homie on the Last Dance on the last episode, because Scottie Pippen still claims to this day that this is the biggest trash talk that has ever been said, is that he went to Malone. I'm trying to remember, was that game 3? He walks up to Malone while he's on the free throw line that they could have iced the game, and Malone misses 2 straight free throws because Scottie tells him the mailman don't deliver on Sundays. And then he said Malone lost his cool. But you can see that there was a level of respect. They show you the level of respect. You know what I mean? Meaning they shook hands at the end of games when they're going back and forth to press conferences. You know, towards the game once they're going to the podium and whatnot. You know, Mike went over there, shook their hand on 2 different occasions that they showed.
And you know something? I didn't know about that. I didn't know that they. Well, I guess now it's probably different, but back then, once the other team or where players are already behind the curtain listening to what everything's being said, and you look behind the curtain, there's your opponent. You just whipped or you lost to, saying high five or good game, whatever. I didn't know they even had that even happened back then. That's how it was.
When they had the interview with Reggie Miller, right after they interviewed Jordan, it's like Reggie came by and was like, and Jordan told him, "Oh, no, I know this ain't over yet. I know it's gonna be a fight. I already know." So that was pretty interesting.
That was
the thing that was great.
It's like there was some respect there, and I think for Jordan, he liked the respect, the mutual respect, but he needed to find something every time, just to get that little edge in himself, just to beat you, man, just to take your soul out of you. So.
Right.
Well, think about it. He lied about the LeBradford Smith thing. Like, he finally came out and said, "Yeah, he didn't say any of that." So he had to have that edge.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, all 3 of you have a good understanding of what that's like, having to motivate yourself quarter in and quarter out. You might have a good quarter. You might have hit 130% of your number, but guess what? When the new quarter starts, you got to start the thing all over again.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You got to find different ways to motivate yourself.
The best quote in this whole documentary for me was when they asked him, "Do you have a gambling problem?" And he said, "No, I got a competitive problem." I'm just too damn competitive.
Right.
Like, to me, that is you want to say one quote for Jordan? It's that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
to your point, a lot of us right here have that same thing. Is like, in sales, you have to have that competitive problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, who are you really competing against? Yourself. And you have to continue to find ways to motivate yourself.
And
Sorry.
Chris, you good. And Chris, what you were saying about finding motivations, I'm happy you said that, because remember what your boys said about Brian Russell, first time meeting him. It was him when he went to practice, or Karl Malone, whatever. He goes up to Karl Malone and John Stockton and say, "Hey, what's going on?" All of a sudden, Brian Russell like, "Why you quit? Why you quit?" And Jordan's like, "You need to come get this fool. You need to come get this boy." And from that point on, he remembered that. He remembered that conversation. And he's like, "Yep, I'm gonna light your ass up." On this first run.
You mentioned it because there's been so many stories where it's like the rookies come in and they talk trash, and then the old heads already been in the game and know him, like, "Oh, don't forget him, Joe. He don't know what he's talking about. He's a young cat. He's stupid. He don't know what he's talking about." He tried to save him, but it's too late. Sorry, too late.
I listened to an interview with Isaiah Ryder where he said the same thing about Kevin Garnett, because Kevin Garnett started talking like that.
I listened to that same one on ESPN. That conversations are hilarious. Chris, Jason, have you heard that conversation about
Oh,
that?
yeah.
I've heard it. I've heard Isaiah Ryder tell it, and I heard Kevin Garnett tell the same story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Garnett, let his mouth get him in trouble. He's like, oh,
And
man.
Isaiah's like, man, I got to guard him, man. God.
Ate that man up.
Love it. Love that story.
But that's the hidden thing. I mean, think about it. Like, of course, part of the entertainment is to appeal to children, like we once were. But imagine if the NBA was on like HBO or like Cinemax or Showtime or something like that, where like the players had microphones on them and you could hear them like shit talk like in the middle of the game. That would be crazy to me.
Who knows what kind of horrendous stuff we would hear.
Right.
The one thing I heard about this is, I guess one of the big surprising things for me with this whole documentary is how the hell they sat on this for so long. They let them film the whole 98 season, and they had access that nobody else had, and it sat for so many years. Think about it, from 98 until 2020.
Mm-hmm.
How it sat that long, but then I was reading the interview, and it sat, I don't know why, and they didn't say why, but Jordan signed to do the documentary after Cleveland won their championship.
Mm-hmm.
Why Cleveland? Why that long? Why then? Like, that's what I want to know.
I don't know.
Yeah, that one might be tough. We might never know the real reason. I mean, we can speculate all day, but we'll never know the real reason why they picked that specific time to say, yeah, go ahead and do it. But the timing for it to be released was perfect. Let's be honest. They released it.
Oh, yeah. It worked out perfect, but for him to sign on, because it was signed on like 2 or 3 years ago, and to do everything that they're doing, like why he said, okay, finally, I'll let y'all release that video.
I don't know. I mean, some conspiracy theorists say it's because they feel as if LeBron is gaining on Mike, right? I've heard stories even before that Mike and Kobe LeBron and Kobe were egging Mike to do the documentary, that he had been sitting on it for so long. That at one point in time that they were all like having a cigar and a drink together, that they kept telling him, you should do it. No, I don't know the truth to that story. I don't know the truth to the night that LeBron won in Cleveland, which makes his third championship, his first championship with Cleveland, that he decided maybe I'm going to do this because this dude's gaining on me. I don't know. See, the thing is about Mike is kind of weird is that he left his competitive playing as his competitive playing, meaning if I could do something about it, I'm going to do something about it. But he doesn't rarely after his career talk so much, be like, man, trust me, if it was right now, I would kill you. You see what I'm saying? In his day, he would always say that, but after his career, he's always shied away from the GOAT conversation. He's always like, dude, I didn't play against a bunch of people. I didn't play against people after me. I didn't play against the people, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, all these guys. So please, in all respect, I will never say that I'm the greatest. That's not for me to say. Do you see what I mean? And I have no idea if it's just because of the LeBron factor and things. I mean, I don't know. But the sports media in regards to the talking heads, the ones that you get on like First Take and Undisputed and everywhere else, now the radio shows, they are trying to make that link in terms of LeBron and Mike, because they want some conflict to be between LeBron and Mike, when really there's no conflict between the two.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, if you look at this documentary, all it did for me, or not for me, I guess, like my son, for example, my son's about to be 16.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, he's already 16. He looks at Jordan completely different than he did before this documentary. He looks at Jordan like, holy crap, Dad, I didn't know he was that great. Mm-hmm. He always looked at him as a crying meme. He always looked at him, like that.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, do you know who you're talking about? And now he's like, oh, I get it. So hopefully, people see this doc and think of it that way, because they can see it through our eyes that actually saw him play and things like that. And it makes me get more respect for people like Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, Kareem, Wilkes, Bill Russell, all of them, because I didn't see them play live, but I did watch video, and you can't understand it between video versus live.
Right. Like
it's hard. It's hard to have that conversation. Like Kareem, I would have loved to see Kareem. One of the most soft-spoken, humble dudes that you will ever meet, but he was a killer on the court. And all I got is clips. All you got is clips. You just never knew how talented he was and how unstoppable that skyhook was. But
I mean, think about it. He trained with Bruce Lee. Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah.
Just amazing.
All-time leading scorer, and he's sitting there doing karate with Bruce Lee.
No,
was that the Game of Death he was in?
Yeah, Game of Death.
Yeah.
But I know
and same thing like Bill Russell. Bill Russell, how many championships did he win?
11.
And he was a player coach in one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like that. If I could go back in time and watch stuff live, it'd be them two.
Ooh, those two. I think for me, if I was to go back and watch something I have never that I wasn't alive for, I would want to go see Wilt, and I think I would want to see Pistol Pete.
So my other one would be Pistol Pete, but see, I would want to see Pistol Pete at LSU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not the pros. Like, I'd like to see Wilt's 100-point game, but when you're talking about dominance, I'm looking at Kareem and Bill Russell.
Mm-hmm. I would like to see the games where it was Wilt versus Bill and just seeing how those games played out.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Chris. I'm thinking the same thing. Just those two pretty much going against each other. That'd be what I want to see. But I know for me, though, one thing I was watching these 2 episodes tonight is that everyone, like, we all know how great he was, but this younger generation, not just Jordan, they also see how great the other players was, like Reggie Miller, how great he was, how great Patrick Ewing was awesome, how great Charles Barkley was. These other players that these kids have no idea, I've never seen them play. Like, dude, these dudes, Clyde Drexler, all these cats was just amazing because, we all watched them. We all knew they was bad. We all knew, like Jason said, the East was strong. The West in the 90s was just as strong. It was like this, like literally this. It wasn't this. It was like deadlock, the East and the West. Yeah. And one thing I remember was the West was always strong at centers and power forwards and small forwards. The East always had the better guards and the 2 guards because it was so good. That's how, it was just, back then it was just so equal with each other. And like you said, everyone stayed at one team. No one would go to another team, no super teams. The most you had was 2 people as a super team because everyone wanted to play against wanted to beat the hell out of each other. And it was awesome. Like, it was.
Right. So, and in terms of fandom too, it's kind of like you got to grow with your team. You see what I'm saying? Like, most players were there year and out. They shuffled, some players here and there, but most of the guys were the core guys that they were going to be there for, anywhere between 5 to 10 years. It's so kind of crazy now. I mean, could you imagine being an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and at one point in time, you wake up one morning, you got KD, Russ, and the Beard, and then like 8 years later, you ain't got none of them?
Oh, dude, that was me in the 80s and 90s because I was a huge Michael Jordan fan. Like, that was my guy. But I was a Maverick fan. So we had, like, Rolando Blackman. We had Detlef Schrempf. We had Derek Harper.
Say his name.
Who?
Roy Tarpley.
We drafted Roy Tarpley.
Tarpley.
But we had all those guys, and they did better when they went to the Knicks and the Lakers. Sam Perkins. I mean, think about it. We were one slot away from getting Michael Jordan. if for whatever reason the Bulls didn't draft Michael Jordan, he's going to be a Maverick. Instead, we get Sam Perkins. So like I was like that because every year I'm like, okay, maybe we got a little squad here. We get in the playoffs, things like that. But then it's like, okay, they're done. I'm watching the Bulls, or it's like I'm watching the Mavericks and Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for WGN,
oh yeah, that's
I
what's up.
wouldn't be a basketball fan because I got to see Maverick games whenever somebody was cool playing against them.
Mm-hmm.
But WGN was on every night.
Yeah.
I think for me, being a Rockets guy, seeing that the West teams that went up to face I remember the Suns team, we always had hellish battles with them. We've eliminated them a few times, they eliminated us. The Sonics team, when they were dominant, it was always super tough to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
And then that Jazz, oh man, those back-to-back years against the Jazz where they eliminated us both years.
Oh, boy.
Those teams.
Don't talk about that shit. Oh, God. Oh, boy.
Always that what if. Like I was thinking about the 93 season where they faced the Sonics to do the first three-peat, and we lost to that Sonics team. I forgot how long that series went, but we lost to them, and it was like that was that moment right there where it could have been, what if Houston made it to the finals to face that Bulls team? What would we have gotten? Because you would have had a pretty much in his prime Hakeem by that time. And I don't think we had Drexler yet. We still had Vernon Maxwell.
Yeah, Otis Thorpe.
And Otis Thorpe. So we still had that team that won the championship in 94, 95.
Y'all still had Sam Cassell and Horry.
Sam Cassell, Horry. I think that would have been a great series to see, but we never. That damn Sonics team.
Yeah.
Well, look at the Magic team they played against. Like that Magic team was loaded with Shaq and Penny and Grant and Dennis Scott, Nick Anderson, and all them. And that first year they beat them. And the second year, Jordan's like, dude, y'all aren't even gonna get close to us, and like killed them, just like the Rockets did in the finals that one year they were in them. Like that team, if it would have stayed together. To me, that Magic team is a lot like the Oklahoma City team. If Oklahoma City could have kept Durant, Westbrook, Harden, and who's the big guy?
Perkins.
Perkins was on there.
Adams.
Yeah.
Well, they had Ibaka too. Remember,
Serge Ibaka.
Yeah, they could have kept that team together. That team should have won a championship.
Yeah. But the part of the beauty of the NBA is, and Magic is probably Magic and maybe Larry are the exception to the rule, is that, and maybe young Kobe, is that for the most part you got to pay your dues, and there's a mental part of the game that it takes years for you to kind of get a grasp of. You know what I mean? And so a lot of these guys, I mean, it took like what? How long did it take LeBron? Like 9-10 years before he got his first chip. It took Mike 7. Like Shaq he was leading his team and whatnot, but he wasn't ready yet. You see what I'm saying? And then when he became ready, you couldn't stop that dude.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing is that it's a beautiful thing in terms of the game of basketball in regards to the NBA is that you might get in the league, you have supreme talent, you can jump, you can do these things that are extraordinary and whatnot, but the mental part of the game isn't quite there yet. And as you regress athletically, your mental starts to catch up. And eventually your mental surpasses and you become something different.
Well, and that's where you're like tic-tacky on things. Like I watched a documentary, or I watched a clip the other day about LeBron versus Jordan on who's the better, overall athlete and things like that. And at the end of the day, they broke it down to the 2011 series between the Heat and the Mavericks. And if you rewatch that series, and I watched that, I was there for some of the games and everything.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron was having trouble with an aging Jason Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Not even Dirk. It was Jason Terry. Dude, Jordan would never have had a problem with anybody aging or anybody who wasn't the main person.
Yeah.
Like that right there, for me, seals the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can go to 6 championships, you can go to him being a 9 NBA finals, you can go to all the different things, but never in Jordan's career did he sit there and like he may have told himself like, who's the guy that Jerry Krause said was the best defender? Dan Marley.
Yeah, Marley. Yeah.
Marley. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, he uses that as motivation, but he never really believed that Marley was anything closer, like in the same realm. Same thing with like when he was talking about Gary Payton. And Gary Payton was one of the best defensive players ever.
Mm-hmm. Thunder Dan.
Oh yeah, but
that was his nickname.
So,
Thunder Dan.
On this episode, though, I do want to talk about Steve Kerr and his whole little thing. Like, did anybody know about Steve Kerr's dad?
No clue. No idea. I did not know his dad died. That was
Yeah, I did only because I guess it was talked about. You know what I mean? And there was still conflict in Beirut at that time, even years after his father had was slain. So I don't know. It's just more of it's an interesting aspect of it, and I never once I'll tell you one thing: I didn't connect the dots. I didn't connect that Mike would have this issue of his dad being murdered and Steve Kerr the same. And the fact that they never had that conversation was even crazier.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that like they showed previous episodes where Jordan and Kerr got in a fight, and then they waited to put how they put that relation between their both dads, getting killed and stuff. Like, dang, that's good on the director's part to kind of set it up that way. Because whenever it came out in this episode, I was like, man, I had no clue at all that he went through that. And like, it gave a different perspective for why Kerr kind of got as much FaceTime as he got.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know before this documentary started, they were like, man, why is Steve Kerr getting so much shine? We didn't know. I didn't know that there was a link between him and Jordan that I had no clue about, other than Jordan punching him in the face. But I mean, that was expertly done when they brought it all together at the end to show, hey, this happened with Kerr's dad, and Jordan just recovering from his dad getting murdered. So I mean, it was an unspoken bond in a way. It's almost like you can link with someone without really telling them your life story. So that's kind of what happened there.
Yeah. Did y'all watch? Well, not the subject, but did y'all watch? The movie that came out years ago, Batman vs Superman.
Yeah.
I tried to watch that.
Okay. What was the one thing that they both had in common?
Wonder Woman.
Both their
They're
moms.
both superheroes?
Both their mother's name was Martha.
Oh yeah.
Didn't make a lot of sense. Still,
I've never watched them, so I can't tell you anything other than
Oh my God, that was crazy.
So
one has an animal, the other has a letter.
Yes, both the moms was Martha.
So thing ever.
Yeah, so like Chris said,
for me, it was already going downhill. But the fact that the only reason he didn't kill him was because both of their mother's name was Martha. I was like, man, get out of my face with this bullshit.
DC Comics.
Right. And so and like Chris said, they had that connection that they didn't talk about, but then when they probably did, it's like, oh hell, we actually have the same situation that happened to our dad. So kind of crazy. But I do want to mention, I guess, the non-flu game because okay, so I guess it is weird when you have 5 guys deliver one pizza. 5 guys come to the door.
The original 5 guys.
Why? You let 5 guys make your burger?
But hold on. Was that really abnormal for Jordan whenever you saw the previous episode where he had to stay in his hotel room the whole time because as soon as he walked out, people swarmed him?
Yeah.
And I think that's why he ate the pizza without even thinking about it, because he's so used to that. So he didn't think, oh, they ain't gonna put nothing in my pizza. They're just trying to get a glimpse of me or autograph or whatever. But the boys in Utah, they shady. Rockets fans known that for years. They were trying to take you out.
Show did. But that's really crazy. And no, I know now they're not. I guarantee if you go online right now and look up the Jordan 12 flu games, now they ain't the flu games no more.
It's still the flu games.
That's the food games.
The flu game sounds more marketable though.
It's still a flu games.
Oh it is.
Don't have me go to my closet. Go pull them out.
Hey, they had so many alternative names for that. It was the flu game. Then people started hearing about the food poisoning, but then they said no, it was a hungover game. He was really hungover. That's why.
Yeah. Right. That's where
they were like he was out. Somebody had said that they seen him out at like 2:30 in the morning drinking.
I was gonna say that was the conspiracy game where no, he was riding and flying from Vegas and all the different things that you kept hearing as far as like Jordan gambling. Oh, he's back at gambling, playing golf at night. Or I heard so many different conspiracies about that other than food poisoning.
Yeah.
And actually, if you go online and Google flu game rumors, the person that kind of started off was actually Jalen Rose. Jalen Rose was the one that says, nah, he was hungover. He actually said that many times. It's actually, you can Google it right now. It's online. You see what he says that he was out the night before drinking and he was actually hungover. So.
Alcohol poisoning, yeah. Alcohol poisoning can make you throw up.
Yeah, that's the way to spin it.
He clearly wasn't drinking my Douce. If I do say so myself.
There you go. There you go. And this one, and I don't know, was it just me? It didn't really have no music to it, or did it? I didn't catch that, did I? There was like no. There wasn't.
Yeah, like the previous episodes, the music kind of was more of just a transition into a game or something like that. Yeah, or solemn because they're talking about somebody who died or something like that. Or somebody sick.
Music wasn't the same in '98 like it was in '88.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, they didn't go through a montage of highlights.
Yeah, not this one. Yeah, not at all.
They went to specific like clips of a game, but they didn't go through like the montage of highlights like they did in the past when they used Eric B and Rakim, when they used Cool J and so forth, like they did in the earlier episodes.
And that's probably because most of those games were so close that there wasn't a crazy like breakout game that they can really say, hey, let's put a great soundtrack to it. It was nip tuck for most of those games they showed in episode 9. So, but I do miss the music. I was waiting for it because they had some heat in the previous episodes.
I know, right? I was waiting until like, where's the music at? Like, oh, there's no music to this one. All right, whatever.
Dude, that's why I only listen to old school music, because 80s and early 90s, like you had that's when music was music. You start getting in the late 90s, 2000, I don't like that.
Hey, you do understand that you're talking like an old man now, right?
I'm old as shit. I don't care.
Because every time somebody gets old, they think that their music is always the best. I'm not saying that yours wasn't. I'm not saying our generation wasn't. I'm just saying every generation before us say the same damn thing.
See, the 70s, you can say that because there's still great music in the 70s. Give me some good music.
In the 60s, them dudes in the 60s and 70s, when they went to like a Beatles or a Rolling Stones concert, and then they turn around and it's the 1980s, and you got the hair bands and tight spandex pants and hair, and then they be like, what the fuck is this bullshit? This ain't rock and roll. So we're like in the same thing. We're like, what the kids are listening to now? There's like, this ain't hip hop. I agree with you.
Since we mentioned the music part, there was only one song that I think in '97 that would have been great, but unfortunately it came a year after Jordan already was fully back, and that was Return of the Mac from Mark Morrison. That would have been an awesome track to have in that episode, but Jordan was already back in '96. So,
I'll tell you the one song in that era like that. You're talking about late '90s, like probably '95, '96, '97, which they show on commercials but didn't show during the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
which is a one-hit wonder. It's funny, it's more comic than anything, but it's Skilo, I wish.
Yes. Yes.
That was a jam. That was a jam, though. That was his only hit, but that was a jam, though.
Right, it's a one-hit wonder and all that, but I'll give it that one. They should have put that in there because they could have easily transitioned that with like Reggie Miller saying, I wish. You could have done so many different players.
Good stuff.
Biggie's hypnotized. They didn't even do that.
They didn't play any Biggie. They didn't play any Pac. They didn't play any Jay-Z. They played Nas. If I Ruled the World.
Some missed opportunities there.
Yep.
You know, it is what it is.
They were trying to focus on that particular series that they were having the trouble with. Mm-hmm. They wanted the games to be the focus because this was getting towards the end. We're in the end of the road. So let's show you how tough the last two runs were.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you this. The one thing they missed on this episode, though, was the fact that they talked about the security guard that was like his second dad.
Mm-hmm. Gus.
And they never closed the loop because, I know what happened to Gus, but I wish they would have put it in there.
Yeah. How did the whole Gus thing ended? You know, because he was there when they – I don't want to go fast forward, but, yeah, he was there when they actually win in 98, and they don't say anything about him again in regards to his either recovery or recovery from lung cancer.
Right. They missed a huge opportunity there to at least in either episode 9 or future episodes to explain more.
Yeah, because I felt that was a story in itself. It was like, okay, this obviously being made to be a second father figure. Yeah. He's got lung cancer, you know, so you don't know how much more time he has with him. So how is that relationship with Jordan, you know, developing more now that, you know, he might not have as much time with him. So they just kind of ended that. Like, he was there when they won the last title, and that was it.
I think that his story of what I agree with all of you guys in saying that they didn't fully wrap it up, but I think that the way they're wrapping it up is that he was away for chemo and he found a way to come back Game 7, and when he comes back Game 7 and they win, that's the end of the story. It's like he was a good luck for him that he wins in Game 7. They didn't put that necessarily in your face. It was like stuff that you had to piece together yourself, I guess.
Right. He got the game ball and, like, you know, special moment, things like that. But I wish they would have wrapped it up with something else. But, you know, that – and then the other guy, the white dude that always played the quarter game with them where he was trying to get closer to the wall. Like, I'd love to see all those. Yeah. I would love to see more in depth about, like, where, like, they did it with Gus a little bit, but I wish they'd have done with both them and like his trainer and all the different people that were behind the scenes that nobody really knew. Mm-hmm. Like, they could have done a whole episode just on that.
They could have kept on going and made another 10 episodes.
They should. There should be
go into
the Last Dance
comeback.
Part 2.
They could go into comeback. Just go into that.
They will be. They're going to do that with the Washington Wizards, but it's going to be like a 20-second clip.
So what was your mindset?
Hey, Mike, if you watch this video, I'm not with that comment.
Come on. I read a thing where Mark Cuban tried everything possible to get him to play for the Mavericks in 2001.
Yeah, Mark Cuban is very savvy, man.
I know. Can you imagine that team? Think about the team that Cuban had in 2001 with Dirk, Finley, Nash. Like, we made the playoffs. We did really good, but you have Jordan there. Mm-hmm. God, we make a strong run then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another thing too. And it's kind of crazy because in retrospect, I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I would have loved to see him play that strike shortened season, the year that San Antonio won. Yeah. And I would love to have seen him play for the Knicks that year. And that's because the Knicks didn't know what they had. The Knicks it was a shortened year, right? They kind of stumbled in the championship that year. And he would have just been like the perfect icing on the cake for them to get over San Antonio.
I mean, and think about that. Think about that season right there with the Knicks, or if he would have went to like the Mavericks in 2001, things like that. Like he wins a championship with another team and does like. I'd love to see part of the documentary why he picked Washington. Like,
I could tell you why, but I mean, yeah, they're not gonna say it then, or they didn't say it. It's already over. Damn, the Lakers starting to talk for me. So he went to Washington because, of course, he wanted to be an owner, and they offered him, part stake into it, and then they tricked his ass into playing, and he had to give up his ownership stake in order to play. What a dummy!
But Cuban offered him the same thing.
Mm.
Like he had multiple offers on that. That's what I'm saying. Like, why Washington? Because you look at that team.
Yeah,
that team didn't have anything.
Nothing.
Yeah, Boston roster was pretty pathetic at the time, and they weren't really a contender either. So
Right.
only way I can feel like he really took that opportunity with Washington is that the team wasn't valued that much, so it probably was an opportunity for him to say, okay, well, they're not a high value team, so that would allow me to possibly get my money together, to find out maybe I can acquire them later on. I do this publicity thing, come and play for him for a little bit, and get the right people in place to help me out, and I can buy this team. But it didn't work out that way. But it did allow him to learn how he can get the right people together to buy the Bobcats when they became available as an expansion franchise.
Right.
Even though the Bobcats are god awful. I'm sorry, Mike, if you see this, they suck.
Yeah, it was pretty
But
bad.
that's the thing is like I'd love like if I could interview Jordan, that's what I'd interview him about. That and Birmingham and some other shit that like the 3 numbers he had playing, which do y'all know what the 3rd number he played with in the NBA?
Well, yeah, the stolen jersey.
Yeah,
Yep.
stolen jersey, 12 in Orlando.
Stolen man's jersey. It's damn
Right.
shame.
And actually, Jason, what you said earlier about the shortened the shortened season. Thank you for that, sir. That's a good segue. We're gonna stop right there. We could definitely pick that conversation up in a few moments once we discuss episode 10. So, guys, let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up. I want to definitely talk about that and get our input and just kind of like, what our thoughts would be on stuff like that. So before we get out of here, guys, Jason, please go ahead. Let's go ahead and give everyone the socials. Hit you on Instagram or so on.
Oh, you catch me on the Instagram at I'll slap your mama at Instagram.com.
Nice. And Mr. Chris Sale,
My social is I don't condone violence against women. Instagram.
At Instagram. So, Anthony, go ahead and give them your social. I can't talk right now.
Your social.
Yeah, I can't talk right now. Blah 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 blah.
What about your social security?
I'll give you mine.
I'm not even drinking. I don't drink. So what I tell you? Anyway.
Yeah, mine must be the GOAT. Either one.
All right, guys. Of course, me, the Mark Show on Instagram. So if you guys like this video, give us a thumbs up. It's on screen right now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to people. And Where's My Baby Zoe? We'll see you on Wednesday. We'll discuss episode 10, the last episode of the series. So talk to you then. Peace.